Every prompt that you've ever written to AI has been a self-portrait, not a question, not a request, but a self-portrait. Just think about how you're using AI right now. You open up GPT or Claude and you type in a prompt for a decision, for a strategy, or for a piece of content, perhaps even a business plan. And then the output comes back and it looks very strategic, very sharp, very well structured and coherent. Then you implement it or refine it or ask for a follow-up. And somewhere in that loop, you started outsourcing, not your tasks, but your thinking. And here's what makes this invisible. The outputs look good enough to feel like progress. They look like clarity, strategy, and they look like sophisticated thinking. But what they really are is a mirror reflecting the identity behind the prompt. And if the identity behind the prompt is vague, uncertain, or externally dependent, the output will be precise, structured, and sophisticated on top of a foundation that you didn't build. The biggest risk with AI is not that it's replacing you. The biggest risk is you replacing your own thinking and not noticing, because the outputs are polished enough to feel like you. Every AI conversation has been framed the same way in terms of AI being a tool. So let me put a circle here, put AI here. So AI is a tool. It makes you faster, more efficient. It handles various tasks so you can focus on high-level strategy and big picture thinking. So it's the creation engine. It generates outputs, accelerates your workflow, and allows you to focus on things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to focus on if you had to do all the actual tasks themselves. So the big picture model here, we can go as a creation engine, okay? Creativity at its max capacity here, where you're just giving it the internal prompts in terms of what you want it to do, and AI will execute on that. But here's the thing. This is missing the most important part about AI, because AI doesn't create, it reflects. So let's erase this here. And this is really important here in terms of understanding that AI is really just a reflection engine. Very important here, because every output that AI gives you is shaped, filtered, determined by the identity, the thinking pattern, and the emotional state behind the prompt. Think about this. This is super powerful and important for you to realize that every single prompt that you're putting in there into either GPT, Claude, or any of these other tools, every single output that AI gives you is shaped, filtered, determined by the identity, the thinking pattern, and the emotional state behind the prompt, behind the person that is actually typing the actual prompt. And what this essentially means is that AI is not just giving you answers. It's essentially showing you yourself, and nobody teaches that. So let's draw a little arrow right here, back and forth, and this is the self-portrait. Okay? So it's showing you yourself, and nobody tells you that the quality of your AI output is a direct readout of the quality of your identity at the moment that you type the prompt. Nobody tells you that every time that you ask AI what to do, instead of using it to clarify what you already know, you are training yourself to need the mirror more than you trust the person looking into it. You see, this is not about AI. This is about who you are when you use it. And today, we read the portrait. I've worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs, business owners, creators, founders who've been able to fully integrate AI into their workflow. The research, the strategy, the planning, the decision making, the content creation. And when I looked at what was actually happening beneath the surface, the pattern was the same every time. Every single prompt that they wrote was a version of tell me what to do. And it wasn't because they were lazy or they lacked intelligence. Because what was really going on is that they had slowly, invisibly replaced their own thinking, and the outputs were sophisticated enough that they never felt the erosion happening. What I found when I mapped this across my own use is that there's a loop that is operating underneath every single AI interaction. Your identity shapes the prompt shapes the output shapes what you believe is possible. And that belief reinforces the identity. If the identity that's going in is vague, uncertain, dependent, the loop doesn't break, it deepens. The M.I.R.R.O.R system that I'm going to walk you through today is the exact diagnostic tool that I built from this pattern. It's 6 steps and 1 outcome, using AI to reflect a better identity, instead of reinforcing the ceiling of your current one. Here's what we're going to go over today. So we're going to go over the M.I.R.R.O.R loop. So identity, prompt, output, interpretation, and then back to identity. This is the M.I.R.R.O.R loop, where you have the identity that then creates a prompt and then receives an output from the LLM, GPT, or Claude, or whatever tool, and then it creates an interpretation and then reflects back into the identity. Now, the M.I.R.R.O.R model, this is how every single AI interaction that you have is feeding back into the identity that produced it. And this is why most high performers or entrepreneurs, business owners, people that want to reach that next level, they are unknowingly using AI to reinforce their current ceiling and not breaking through it. And then we're going to walk through the 4 AI identity archetypes, different types of users, and you'll likely see yourself in one of these. The passive consumer, the dependent thinker, the amplifier, and the architect. And then we're going to walk through the M.I.R.R.O.R system. This is an acronym here. And this is the exact sequence for turning AI from a crutch into a full-blown clarity instrument. And to make this real, I want to walk you through an example of the dependent thinker. This is a high-performing entrepreneur who has AI integrated into all the different parts of their business. We're going to look at what their prompts are actually revealing about their identity. You see, AI doesn't make you smarter. It amplifies who you already are, which means every conversation that you've had with it has been a portrait of that person. The question is, do you like what you see? Okay, so let's walk through this through the dependent thinker archetype. This is a person who is technically capable and sound. They're often a high performer, creator, entrepreneur, business owner, founder, and they've integrated AI into pretty much every single part of their operation. The research, the writing, the strategy, the decision making. They're not just a passive user, they're very sophisticated. They have systems and processes. And when you peel back the layers of the onion and look at how they're actually using AI, the specific prompts, the types of questions, the answers they accept instead of pushing back on. Through all of this, something becomes very clear. Every single prompt that they write is a version of, tell me what to do. What's the best strategy for X? What would you recommend for Y? Give me a plan for Z. You see, they're getting answers, fast, clean, and well structured. And every single answer was quietly eroding, something they don't notice that they are losing. Their own self-trust, their internal authority, their capacity to sit with uncertainty and generate their own clarity before outsourcing the question. Because what they're really doing is they're using AI not to amplify their thinking. They are using it to replace it. And the most important part here is that they don't even see this. They don't notice this because their prompts always reflect a vague, externally dependent identity of tell me what to do. And the outputs always reflect the same identity back to them in very clean language and sophisticated framing. But underneath it all, it's the same pattern. Someone looking outside of themselves for direction. You see, the mirror was working perfectly. It was just reflecting the wrong version of them. What ends up happening that is very dangerous here is that they stop asking themselves internally first, because it's just faster to talk to GPT or Claude. They're never looking at what their prompts are actually saying about who they are at the identity level. Here's what they were saying. So AI is and equals to a reflection engine, not a creation engine. You see, AI does not generate insight from nowhere. It generates output from the input, and the quality, depth, clarity, and the identity of that output is a direct function of the quality, depth, clarity, and identity of what you put in. Here's the thing. So your identity shapes the prompt that you actually write, and the prompt determines the output that you receive. And then the output that you receive and how you interpret it reinforces the identity that you prompted it from. And then the identity that you reinforced rewrites or writes the next prompt. And so this loop is going on every single session, every single time that you're interacting with a GPT or Claude. If you don't change your identity, then AI is just going to continue to reinforce your current one. This is why two people can use the same exact tool, GPT or Claude, and produce completely different outputs. Not necessarily because of the model, not because of specific prompting technique. It's because the identity behind the prompt is the driving force. Okay, so now I want to go over the 4 AI identity archetypes. So let me go ahead and erase the board here. So we know that this is the mirror loop that we're all running. And so now what's really important for us is to go over these identity archetypes so that you can get a better understanding of which category, which archetype you fit into here. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. Okay, so the 4 AI identity archetypes. Number 1, the passive consumer. This is somebody who maybe goes out and watches a bunch of videos, copies other people's prompts, maybe goes to these different platforms where they can buy different prompts for different images, for different strategies, doesn't really question themselves or the prompts as a whole, and they're just kind of following directions. And they have a low level of awareness of what the outputs reveal about the questions being asked. And so the loop that they're running is a shallow identity, which then creates a shallow prompt, very surface level. Then they get surface output, which then reinforces the shallow identity. So this person never really stops to think about what's really being said between the lines and what is the output saying about who they are, right? It's very, very passive, very shallow, and they're in here and they don't even know it because they don't even really have the self-awareness of themselves to question their own identity, let alone questioning the outputs and the inputs of their own self through this particular AI interaction. So number 2, the dependent thinker. They use AI to make decisions, structure thinking, and to generate direction that they should be generating internally first. So they're doing a lot of this thinking externally through the AI versus first checking in with themselves internally to ask the question of, What direction do I want to go? What strategy should I think about implementing here? Here's the loop. Low, self, trust, identity. This is the tell me what to do prompt. Then the externally generated answer, which then leads to further erosion of self-trust, which means they're compounding in the wrong direction. Okay, so number 3, the amplifier. These types of people have clarity before the prompt. They use AI to extend, to refine, and scale thinking that they've already done. So they're essentially arriving at the tool with a preconceived notion, with something that they have already wrestled with internally. And then they use AI to pressure test that thinking, right? So this is very important here. They're first checking in internally, and they're thinking about it, and they're wrestling with uncertainty. And then they're going to AI to pressure test their thinking and their analysis, their preconceived notions. So the loop here, high clarity, identity, then precise prompt, high quality output, which then reinforces the high clarity identity. These guys are compounding in the right direction. So number 4, this is the architect. This is the target. This is where we want to be at. And I would say both of these are the best place to be, going back and forth from each other. So number 4 here, the architect. They're using AI as a deliberate mirror. They don't just prompt for answers. They're really observing what their prompts reveal about how they're thinking. And they're using this AI tool, whether it be GPT or Claude, as a real-time diagnostic of their own identity, which is extremely powerful. So here's the loop. Self-aware identity, intentional prompt, reflective output, deeper self-awareness, which then leads to an upgraded identity. And this is something that I've used AI for a lot myself. Like, I have gone deep down a lot of different rabbit holes and trying to dissect and understand my own identity and be able to upgrade it based off of how I'm thinking, why I'm thinking this way, going into AI with different preconceived notions, challenging the thought process and the perspective of why I'm thinking a certain way, and asking AI to pressure test that, but then also going in with my own identity and trying to understand my thinking patterns, my ways of coming to conclusions, and how I'm actually coming across, so that I can have a deeper self-awareness of what I'm doing, how I'm operating, and then how I can upgrade that by upgrading my identity. Because here's the thing, AI doesn't necessarily make you smarter. I mean, listen, you can type into AI and you can ask it a bunch of questions and you can get information, and it'll go out and scour the web and give you back different responses and answers. But what it's ultimately doing is that it's amplifying who you already are, which makes the next question the only question that matters. Who are you when you sit down to prompt? Because here's the danger and the opportunity. Outsourced thinking. Let's put this over here. Outsourced thinking equals identity weakness. And then reflective thinking equals identity strengths. Because the biggest risk is not that AI is going to replace you. The biggest risk here is that AI replaces your thinking. It replaces the ability to first you go internally and question yourself and think and strategize and feel the real direction that you want to go and how you really think about something and how you're processing that and then taking that to the actual AI itself. But if you're constantly going to AI and asking it for answers versus you first having thought about it and have analyzed it and thought about which direction you want to go first, or have looked at the information to make an analysis, an initial assumption, then you're risking AI to replace your own thinking. Now, I'm not saying that don't use AI for different tasks, for productivity, for getting things done faster, more efficient. Yes, that's one component. That's part of the amplifier here, okay? Where you are asking it to clarify things and you're going in and you're trying to get things done more efficient, right? But have designated times or become aware of how you're using AI at this stage here, okay? At this amplifier, because when you stop and you think about, why did I phrase it this way? Or how can I phrase this question so that I get a certain type of response, right? How can I frame it? And what is this response and this output telling me about how I'm asking this question? And maybe you have a designated time where you just sit there and you do deep self-awareness identity work, okay? And this is what I do as well. I like to have times where I go deep into self-reflection and to understanding my patterns, like why I'm thinking this way and how my thinking is structured and how I process. So all of these different things that help me become more self-aware of myself so that I can ultimately upgrade my identity and become a better version of myself. Ultimately, when you use AI correctly, every interaction becomes a clarity session, a real-time window into the identity that's currently running your reality. Okay, so now I want to walk through the M.I.R.R.O.R system. This is the AI self-reflection system. Let me go ahead and erase the board here and we'll walk through that. Okay, so the M.I.R.R.O.R system AI self-reflection system. This whole system is 6 steps, and each one turns AI from a mirror that reinforces your current identity into a mirror that builds a better one. So let's go and walk through each one. So M, you want to monitor your prompts. Here's the thing with this. You cannot use AI as a self-reflection tool if you've never actually looked at what your prompts are actually saying. And for this, you want to ask yourself some diagnostic questions. So, are my prompts seeking direction or refining my own? Very important here, because this is where you want to be coming in, refining your own questions, okay? And seeking the direction that you've already established, right? If you're coming in and you have, let's say, 3 directions, okay? There's this direction over here, you're in a pathway, okay? You can go left, center, right. If you're coming in and you're like, which direction do I go? Then you're going to leave the prompt from the AI to tell you, and it's going to go off of your current identity, which means that your low level of self-awareness, and then it's going to give you some random response based off of your vague low level identity, understanding and interpretation. Versus if you come in here and you say, hey, you know what, based off my research, my understanding, I'm leaning towards going this direction, going right. Here's why I think this way. Here's the reasoning behind it. This is what I'm thinking based off of my initial analysis. Hey, what do you think? Refining, okay? That's how you want to go with this and go through this every single time that you're looking for direction. And then the second one here, am I arriving with a position or asking to be given one? And then the third one here, what identity does this prompt belong to? You see, monitoring is the practice of reviewing your prompts before you send them and then after as data points of your current identity. For 1 week, I challenge you and I recommend that you monitor your prompts, really think about them, and then pause for a few seconds before sending them and ask yourself, what does this prompt reveal or say about how I'm thinking right now? And you're not doing it to judge it or to change it. You simply want to observe it, to see it, to understand it. And once you start doing this, you get to start seeing the pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can start to change it, because you cannot reflect on a mirror that you never looked into. So you need to monitor first. Let's go to the next one. So this is the I. Identify the thinking pattern. You see, with the monitoring here, you can see the volume of the pattern itself. You can see how many times you're actually typing in certain things and how you're going about it. And when you identify the thinking pattern, this shows you the structure of it. So here's the 4 category patterns. Number 1, vague, is unclear identity. And then reactive. This is the emotional state driving the prompt. And then number 3, the dependent, low self-trust. Then number 4, intentional, aligned identity. You see, every prompt that you write belongs to one of these 4 categories, and the category that it belongs to tells you which identity is currently at the keyboard. And so with vague prompts, every time that you have something that's vague, that's unclear, you're asking the AI to help you decipher or to distinguish something within your business. This belongs to an identity that is unclear, and it hasn't decided what they think about it first. This is the big thing here, right? Where we went up here and where we're asking AI for which direction to go, but we haven't decided or thought about it first. Like, that's where I think one of the biggest issues is with AI, where you come into this and you have unclear thoughts, identity about who you are and what you're looking for. And so you're asking for AI to give you everything you need to know about everything, but you don't even know or understand yourself first and what you actually think. Like, what do you actually think? You know, like, not what is the common conventional wisdom, not what somebody told you to do or what you heard or watched a YouTube video. What do you actually think about this? And then reactive prompts. So this is something where these prompts are being written in response to a triggering event. They're often looking for validation rather than actual insight. And so the emotional state is driving this input, which means that then the output it's going to reflect that emotional state as well, and not the actual truth. And then number 3 here with the dependent prompts. These are the what should I do? And these belong to the identity that has outsourced their own internal authority, right? Remember, we do better in terms of getting the best responses naturally, intuitively, when we already have a preconceived notion and understanding, a sense of direction, and then we go to AI to validate that or to get a better understanding or to pressure test that, okay? But this person here, the dependent, they're not even being able to trust their own internal dialogue, their own internal sense of self. So now they're just looking for, what do I do? How do I do it? All this stuff that could be first understood and acknowledged internally. And then finally here, number 4, this is where we want to be, okay? This is where we come in here and we say, here's my thoughts on X or Y, right? Remember, up here, here's the direction I think I should go. I should go right. This is why, because of X, because of Z, from what I've researched, from what I've analyzed, here's what I'm thinking. So you're trying to find gaps in this logic. You're trying to stress test what you already know. And so you're using AI very intentionally to help you come to a conclusion. But first, you coming to it with the preconceived notion, understanding, perspective of something that you already know or understand or have a sense of direction in. And so when you identify the thinking pattern, then you're able to identify the current identity that's generating your outputs. So let's go to the next one here. R, refine your question. This is where the mirror starts working for you instead of against you. So for this one, weak, what should I do with my life? Refined, here's where I am. Here's where I'm going. Identify the one leverage point I'm currently underestimating. Notice the difference here in terms of asking the question of what should I do with my life? Very vague, okay? Number 1 here on the identifying the pattern versus you giving the AI some context about here's where I am, here's where I'm going. Give me a leverage point that I am underestimating. So very, very powerful when you can give them more context and be intentional about your prompt. It's going to give you back exactly that. Here's another example. So weak, give me motivation. And then the refined, help me design a system that removes my reliance on motivation. Very, very powerful. You see, the difference here is not just vocabulary, the words, the language that you're using, even though the language and the words are very important. It's about the sophistication of these prompts, okay? Very surface level. Give me motivation. Motivation for what? What are you trying to do? You know, all these different context components are missing versus help me design a system that removes reliance on motivation entirely. This is a completely different question from a different stratosphere, from a different universe, because it's super specific and it's answering the question, giving you the output based off of the purpose of you removing reliance on motivation. Here's the thing. Refining your questions is not about using or finding different or better prompt templates. It's about actually doing the thinking before you're actually prompting. so that the prompt reflects the identity of someone who's already engaged with the problem. The quality of your questions is the quality of your identity expressed through language. Refine the question, and you're training your identity simultaneously. Refine the inputs, and the mirror reflects someone worth becoming. Step number 4, reclaim decision making. This is the most important step, and the one that most AI users will resist. Reclaiming essentially means that there should be decisions that your AI should not be making for you. Not because AI can't, but because you should be making these decisions. This is super important here because think about this. Every single time that you outsource a decision to Claude or GPT that your own thinking should be generating, you file at the identity level that you are someone who requires external input to move. And so you practice that identity, and then it compounds without you even becoming aware of it. And identity, as we have established, is the operating system, which means the more that you train the I need AI to decide identity, the more that identity runs every other domain in your life. You see, reclaiming is not rejecting AI. It's reinstating the hierarchy. So here's the hierarchy. You're thinking, AI as pressure test, and then AI as execution layer. Okay, so number 1 should always be your thinking. Number 2, AI as pressure testing. Okay. Number 3, AI as an execution layer. Not after the fact that you type into GPT or Claude. You should always be having your thinking first in your analysis, okay, before you actually step into the prompts. Okay, step number 5. Oh, you want to observe emotional tone. I know I'm running a bit out of room here, so we'll adjust this accordingly. But number 5, we want to observe the emotional tone of our prompts. You see, your prompts have an emotional signature, and most people have never noticed it. You want to ask yourself, and especially when you are typing from a reactive standpoint, okay, from a reactive category here of identity, you want to ask yourself, am I prompting from fear or clarity? Fear-based prompts are written from anxiety, urgency, self-doubt, looking for reassurance, disguised as information. These are questions like, am I doing this right? Is this a good idea? Or what if this fails? Or what if I fail? And clarity-based prompts are written from groundedness, looking for insight to extend existing thinking. Here's my position. Stress test it. The emotional tone of the prompt determines the emotional loop that it generates. When you have fear-based input, you have outputs that trigger more fear-based questioning. The loop runs on anxiety, and the identity being reinforced is one that operates from doubt. And when you have clarity-based inputs, you have outputs that build upon a stable foundation, and the loop runs on self-trust. The identity being reinforced is one that arrives with authority. So you want to observe the emotional tone before you hit send. And you want to ask, what state am I prompting from right now? And if the answer is anxiety or urgency, you want to regulate that first and then prompt. So ultimately, for this, the emotional state behind the prompt is the identity behind the output. Observe it and you observe yourself. Okay, so step number 6, the final step. Rebuild the identity through better inputs. And so everything before this step was diagnostic. And this rebuild step is where the identity update actually installs. Because here's what the first 5 steps have been building towards. Better inputs equals better identity. Not in the sense where better prompts produce better outputs. In the deeper sense, that the act of arriving at AI with a clear position, an emotionally grounded state, and a defined question trains the identity that produces those qualities, independent of the tool. Every intentional prompt is a vote for the architect identity. Every reclaimed decision is a vote for internal authority. Every regulated pause before a reactive prompt is a vote for self-trust. Rebuild is the practice of using AI interactions deliberately, consistently, as identity training sessions, not just productivity sessions. One intentional prompt, one reclaimed decision, one observed emotional tone, every single day, not as a discipline, as a self-reflection practice. The quality of your AI outputs track the quality of your identity. Rebuild the identity and the mirror changes. So let's recap this. So you want to monitor your prompts, identify the thinking patterns, refine your questions, reclaim decision-making, and rebuild the identity through better inputs. And use this whole entire system as a self-reflection tool, okay? Self-reflection system here for you to be able to understand your current identity and then be able to upgrade it. Here's what I need you to understand. AI is not showing you the world. It's showing you yourself. Every prompt is a self-portrait. Every output is a mirror. Every answer that you accept without questioning it is a vote for the identity that asks the question. Monitor what you're actually prompting. Identify the thinking pattern behind it. Refine the question until it reflects someone who already has the answer forming. Reclaim the decisions that belong to you. Observe the emotional state that you're prompting from, and rebuild the identity, one intentional prompt at a time. The tool hasn't changed, but the person using it determines everything the tool produces. You're not just prompting AI, you're programming yourself. Make sure that the program is worth running.